All right, so Kobusch, I got to know about you through Rahul. Like Rahul's a pretty good friend of mine, and I've heard pretty amazing stuff about you. I'm not even kidding. So I guess we can start with your journey, like coming from Germany and then going to the mountains in Nepal, climbing stuff, and like not taking the ordinary route, but doing it through the difficult ways, going in the winter and stuff like that. So how did all of it start? What was the point when you
Hmm.
started mountain climbing and climbing? So when was that?
Mm. Okay, so I did not start mountain climbing straight away. I was afraid of heights, and in my school in sixth grade we have certain groups like a computer group, volleyball group, whatever, and there was also the climbing group. And I was always fascinated by the things that I'm afraid of. So I joined the climbing group, and I was really scared, but it was a great way to develop skill. And from there, I think through sports climbing, I got more and more into mountaineering. But I started when I was 12 years old with rock climbing and mountaineering. The first mountain I climbed, I was already 19.
Oh.
Wow, yes.
So this was back in Germany itself, or did you visit any other countries for that, or like how did that happen? Did you start
My
climbing
first
back?
mountain?
Yeah.
My first mountain was happening in Africa, in Kenya.
Oh, I see.
So my village where I visited the climbing school has also partner schools in Kenya. And we're a big family. So I have five sisters. So there was not really enough money to support me to just, my parents would pay me visiting some other country, climb something, travel, whatever. And this partnership program from my school was supported by the government. So there was only a small amount of money I needed to pay. And I asked them if I could book my return flight a bit later. And they did. And I spent time alone longer so that I could climb Mount Kenya. It's a 5,000 meter peak. It's also called the Matterhorn of Africa. It's quite a steep thing. It's much more technical than Kilimanjaro.
Okay.
Of course, I had no experience. It was a total disaster. I got sunburned. I got altitude sick. I did every mistake you could do. I had the wrong gear. I didn't reach the summit. But I learned a lot. And one of the big lessons I learned was that I don't need a climbing partner to do things like this. And that the cook I hired and the porter I hired, that I don't really need them. I thought, hey, look, actually you can do this on your own. Because when I tried to start that climb, I asked other students from this exchange program, I said, hey, you want to climb with me? Everyone said no. So I was just going by myself.
Yeah.
And this was also the beginning of solo mountaineering for me.
Okay.
That's nice.
So that's how you encountered yourself with alpinism, right?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you because if you both talk at the same time, it's hard.
So I was saying is like that's how you encounter with alpinism, right? So now that like after that you think, okay, I can do all those stuff by myself.
Yeah. So when I realized I could do expeditions like going to Mount Kenya by myself, I was really empowered. In a way, I felt like I didn't have talent, so I wasn't thinking I was particularly good at it. I did some rock climbing and I was on a decent level. Like I could climb quite difficult routes. But I still, I grew up with this culture where the superheroes, they were already all awesome, like, Spider-Man, he was a normal guy. He gets bitten by a spider and then he becomes a superhero. Like, yesterday I watched Aquaman. Aquaman is already awesome from the beginning, He has all the skill and everything.
Yeah.
You got it from your mother.
And all these movies, they tell you either you got talent or you don't. So either you are or you're not. And I felt like I was totally not. back in the 80s, the movies like Rocky or Karate Kid or whatever, they all had these sequences where this hero, he had to train in order to be awesome, and it's a hard, long way.
Yeah.
And I think this way was something that was not communicated to me, So in that culture, it was more like I felt like I had no talent, and you need to have talent in order to achieve something. So I never thought of me of somebody who could achieve something big. So I did that climb, and then I did some other small climbs, but I was always like, it would be nice to be a professional mountaineer, but it's not going to happen, So better study medicine, follow a safe path.
Right.
And that was my idea after that.
So did you follow medicine after that? So are you a doctor or something, or did you drop it in between? So how did that happen? Like, because we all know that you're a professional mountaineer now. So, so what path did you actually take?
Okay, so of course I was still very curious about mountains, and I climbed some stuff, but I was still in high school. And when I was 19, I also finished high school, and I said, okay, I'm going to study medicine, and I will specialize in alpine medicine so I can find my path to the mountains there.
Nice.
But before I do that, I will climb at least one 8,000 meter peak, because once you start studying, especially medicine, it takes forever, and you're trapped in the system. And to get the time to go out later on, it's going to be very hard.
For sure.
And also, the best years of my life, they're like now, so I'm young, I have the energy. So then I started climbing more and more. I did my first expeditions to Kyrgyzstan, where I did solo climbing. And when the time came to climb my first 8,000 meter peak, I didn't have enough money. So I climbed Amadablam instead. Which was an amazing climb.
Yeah, I have seen your documentary on that. Yeah,
you saw the YouTube video.
Yeah. I saw that YouTube video, and and also that that earthquake video in 2015.
Oh yeah, I've
video
seen that.
Also, yeah.
As the video got pretty viral.
We will get to this video now.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Because I climbed Amadablam, and it was an amazing climb, but I just did something that people have done before. It was nothing too special. I still didn't feel like I have talent and so on. I didn't believe I was able to be a professional mountaineer. And also I was really afraid of taking the path of a professional mountaineer, because you don't have health insurance, you don't have the stability and so on. Like, it's from a business perspective, not from the risk in a mountain, from a normal life perspective, it's not a stable job. So I was really afraid of that, because I grew up in a system that tells you if you got good marks in school, you should go study. So I was still looking forward to my first 8,000 meter peak, and then I arranged a Lhotse expedition for the year after Amadablam, so 2015, and I somehow managed to get the money for that, and that was the first time I was sponsored. 50% of the expedition was sponsored. The other 50% I got from I used to ride a motorbike. I had an accident and the motorbike was destroyed, and the insurance paid some money. I put that money in the expedition.
I guess so that worked out well. The accident worked out well for you then.
They just paid me what the motorcycle was worth, and I would never have sold it. I didn't have any motorbike after that anymore. So it was just basically like selling the bike.
Yeah.
So, and then on that expedition, I was about to return from the expedition. I already had a place in university. It's not so easy to get one, so I was kind of lucky. And I had a lot of doubt during all the time, and I was dreaming about being a professional mountaineer, but still I was too scared to do it. And then this earthquake happened on that expedition, and I almost died, and I had a really close call. And to survive this earthquake was like a rebirth. Everything that happened afterward was a bonus. And I said to myself, look, you could have died now. So if you screw up, it doesn't matter. You can screw up. It's okay now.
Yeah.
So I didn't study medicine, and I said, okay, I will go in the mountains.
That's great.
So I guess that experience at the Everest Base Camp at the time of the earthquake was, it must be a life-changing moment for you, that anything can happen at any time. You can die whenever, like anything can literally happen at any time. So why not just go for it?
Yeah, I just felt like I want to live my life in a way that I do not regret anything. Yeah. And till that point, I lived my life and I wasn't regretting anything. When the avalanche hit my face and fine snow particles entered my nose and mouth and I couldn't breathe, I felt like it's okay. You know, if you die now, it's okay. I don't regret anything.
Right.
And
I guess it's mainly the...
if I would have studied medicine, maybe I would have regretted to waste the time.
Right.
Yes, sure, definitely.
I guess it's just the fears of the person that gets you. The fear, it pulls you back. It doesn't let you open properly. But I guess if you go through such an experience, such a near-death experience, it's quite liberating in a way. But for sure, I guess that turned out pretty good for you.
I think for me, it sounds strange now, but it was one of the best moments in my life because I learned a lot from that, and I would be a complete different person now if I hadn't been in that avalanche.
Right. For sure. Because I've seen that video and it looks really scary. Like when that giant cloud was coming, and that's the video, and you were there in the moment. And yeah, I can imagine. I can't even imagine that how would have everyone over there would have felt at that time. But yeah, I guess that was a tough time for everyone back in Nepal, and I guess Nepal's recovered pretty good after that, and especially the mountaineering community as well. So yeah, Kobusch, then when was the first time that you went to Nepal? Was this the first time when the avalanche struck, or was the Ama Dablam expedition before that?
So I was at Ama Dablam in 2014, and then the second time I visited Nepal was in 2015 for the Lhotse expedition, where the earthquake happened.
Right. And when everything happened, of course. So were you already due to go to the Everest at that in 2015, or were you supposed to go after a week, or like what was happening at that time? Like what was your course of action and everything when you were at Everest Base Camp back then? So what were you?
So I was climbing Lhotse, not Everest at that time. It was more like I was thinking about going up again. I climb unsupported, so I don't use Sherpa support or oxygen and so on. So I needed to carry some loads up for like more fuel and food, and maybe another tent, so that I establish my camps and my supply chain.
Right.
But that morning, I felt like not going up, so I waited for a couple of friends. Also, a lot of Indian friends. Like I don't know if you know Kuntal Joycer.
Yeah, we know him. Yeah, we know him.
And then Rafiq came down, and Kishore came down. So there were a lot of Indians.
I guess a lot of Indians are visiting Everest.
Yeah, there are many Indians on Everest.
Yeah, yes. I don't know why, but everyone wants to go to Everest. No offense, Rahul.
Okay, I know why. But that's another story.
Yes. We'll talk about it later, definitely.
So, Kobusch, you went to Kenya first, then after some time you went to Nepal. So did you undergo any formal training in between these periods, or like you were just climbing on yourself, and like how did that happen? Like how did you work on your skills? How did you
So first of all, to lower the confusion, my first name is Jost and my second name is Kobusch. So you're always calling my second name, huh? Just to make that clear.
Okay, I'll call you Jost now. Jost Kobusch. Yeah.
Okay. So you can just say Jost. like
Jost.
Yeah, Jost. So I had some training before that. So the German Alpine Club, I did some trainings. I was also a trainer, and I trained, but more in like sports climbing. And then I had some alpine training in the military. So after school, I was in the military, but only a very short period. I was in the mountain forces, mountain troops, and I was in special forces, but I didn't enjoy the experience, so I quit. For me, I thought it was an adventure playground, good training, and good salary.
Right.
But it was not as romantic as I thought, and climbing on command was not climbing to me. I don't know. It was like the spirit was missing there. Like, so for me, it was not the same. So I quit, but I received a certain training there. And then and the rest, I'm somebody that's a really good, how do I say, I learn things really well by myself. So I would read books and then apply those things, or I would just go out. I would just go for it and fail hard and learn from the failure.
Yes.
Pretty interesting. So that was the only training or the technical stuff basically that you got yourself involved with, and then straight up you went to Nepal and started climbing huge mountains. Yeah.
I went first to Kyrgyzstan for some training. So I tried to climb a 7,000 meter peak off season there. I reached only 6,000 meter. Lots of failures on that expedition, but very raw. And then I went to Nepal for a high 6,000 meter peak. And the next year I wanted to climb an 8,000 meter peak. My learning curve was really, really steep, but I also took great risks. And I guess my learning strategy was more like learn or die when I was younger.
Yes. Okay. So there's a one question I really want to ask you about. Like, I want to ask you about fear. Okay. So, like, whenever you go out, like whenever you go for your high mountain expedition, every time you encounter with your own fear. So I just want to ask you, like, how you deal with all those fear, and like, what are your learnings, like when you encounter with all those fear and when you come out, successfully after feeling those fear, or whenever you go in a mountain and you feel, this is my greatest fear, as you mentioned before. So is there any point, or you want to tell about fear, how other people can deal with that, and how you deal with your fear?
So I think the most important step is to understand that fear is not bad. Fear is good. And fear helps you to perform. Fear helps me to create focus. So let's say my last expedition, I was on Everest winter. There were some really technical climbing sections there. I was scared as shit. But I just learned to inhale that fear, put it on like a t-shirt, wear it, and that the fear is a part of me, and I accept it, and I use the fear. I use the fear to create focus and concentration for a long period. If I wasn't afraid, I could not climb like 32 hours nonstop and place every step completely right. You know that one mistake can make you fall, and when you fall, it's over. So fear is a great resource. You just, in a way, you should not let the fear take control over you, but rather use the fear as a certain form of energy.
Basically, don't let the fear take control over your mind. I guess that's what you're trying to say. And use that as a resource. I just had one experience with me. I was climbing a 6,000 meter peak here in India. And when I was near the shoulder, I don't know, I was not acclimatized well, and I got really disoriented because it was a night push. for the summit, and we were summiting in the dark. And I got really disoriented, and I was not acclimatized well. And I actually thought that I'm not going to come back. And that's when I took the last push, that though I can't give up over here and stuff like that. But then again, I walked for another 30 minutes and realized that it would be it would be really foolish, and it would be a stupid mistake to go ahead. So rather just come down, prepare better for the next time, and then come again. So I guess that's what helps. Fear helps you with. It keeps you grounded, I guess. You don't make stupid decisions when fear comes into play, and you cannot afford it in adventure, I guess, because it's a matter of life and death. You cannot take stupid decisions on the mountain up there.
I mean, your fear also tells you your limits. So yes, I am afraid, but once I feel like the fear is about to take over the control, then that's just where the limit is. So it helps not
that's
to do
when you
anything.
take a U-turn and go back to base.
Yes.
Okay. So Kobusch, where all have you climbed as of yet? So you've been to Africa, I guess, and you've been to Nepal for sure. And have you been to India, or like where all have you been to?
I've only seen Indian airports. I was thinking about visiting Kuntal, but with the whole Corona situation, I stayed in Nepal and I avoided traveling.
Right.
So I climbed in Australia, for example, like classic stuff in the Kosciuszko range. It's flatland. Australia is the worst place to live as a mountaineer. Then Oceania, like West Papua, in the jungle, like that stuff. Carsten's Pyramid, 7 summits. Then I climbed some stuff in Japan. I climbed stuff in Central Asia, like, and then I mentioned already Africa, Europe, of course. Then north of Europe, in the Arctic, there's an island called Spitsbergen. It's close to the North Pole. There are like more polar bears than human beings.
Wow.
I climbed many mountains there, and when I was younger, I worked as a guide there. And then I climbed stuff in North America, like in Alaska. And I climbed some stuff in South America, like close to Aconcagua. So I got around a little bit. That's a nice part of my job.
I guess, man, that's pretty awesome. I covered a lot of continents, and I guess you've been up, down, left, right, everywhere. That's pretty nice, man. I guess it must be a good exposure. So, how do you what do you think about whenever you plan an expedition, or whenever you decide on climbing something? How do you go about it? Like, what are the steps? Like, what are the do's that you always take care of, that whenever you're venturing out and going to a mountain, and especially when you climb solo, you don't take any support, as far as I know. So what are the most important steps of your planning? Like, how would you say that this is the most important step that I have to take and you cannot miss? Like, what are these obstacles that you usually encounter whenever you're climbing? Or
Okay, so from the very beginning, before I even look at further details, I have to ask myself, what is an objective that is worth it, you know? So at the end of the day, we are just climbing some meaningless ice-covered stone pile there, you know? Doesn't make sense what we're doing. It's totally useless. And nobody really cares what you do, to be honest. Like, maybe, let's say I would have summited Everest in wintertime solo right now. Maybe I would have been celebrated now, maybe even for 1 year. But after then, it's forgotten.
Right.
So
after that,
there's no motivation in doing this. Then somebody else will do something more crazy and so on. I do all of this for myself, and I give meaning to it. So I first, in the beginning, need to ask myself, what is something I see value in, and what gives me direction and purpose? So then the next step starts, and I see like, where can I find an objective like that? For example, a very high peak, I would go to Nepal. A very remote peak, I would go to the Arctic or Antarctic. And then I see how maybe political interference will end up. Like, for example, I was not climbing in Pakistan right now because I was afraid it would complicate my projects in the US because maybe I get visa problems.
Yes.
So
for sure.
then how is one of those projects interfering with the other projects I have? And how do they create a bigger picture? So right now I'm looking at doing the 7 summits, but doing them solo and doing them during winter time. So how would stuff work out like that? And what are the steps? And if you just ask me how to find the best project, there's only one simple question for me. It's just like, what's the most difficult thing I can imagine? And I start from there, So I would love to, open a new route on K2 in winter. I'm not ready yet. So what's the second most difficult thing I can imagine? Okay, after winter. Okay, that's an objective. And if it's not difficult, then, or if it's something I'm sure I can do, then why should I do it? Because I like when I'm not sure if it's possible. And, if you reach the goal, if you reach the summit, you kill the project and you have to look for a new one. So if you have a really, really difficult one, it's also long lasting. So this is the most important part for me in expedition planning. All the logistics and so on, it's like, that's easy. That's
So I guess I want to talk to you about this because it is a huge, it has an impact and it is a part of everything basically. So that is expenditure. And especially when you're climbing alone, you're climbing off season, you must be spending more than what a usual person would spend if he's going for that expedition. So how do you manage your finances? And how do you go about it? Do you have sponsorships or because it is very important, your financial management has to be spot on if you're going for such expeditions, which are really costly. And so how do you go about these things? How do you manage your finances and stuff?
So I do have sponsors. I call them partners because it's a trade. I give them something of value and they give me something of value.
Interesting.
So I work with my partners closely, and in the end, I always decide what I want to do. And sometimes their partners say, hey, why don't you climb this and so on? And I say, no, that's not what I want to do. So I always say, look, I want to climb this. Are you in? Are you supporting me for that climb? Usually, if I have a strong lead, they say yes, because we feel you have the energy, you have this enthusiasm for this project. So I work with those partners, and sometimes I produce content for them. A lot of times I create new products. Like, for example, with Black Yak, I do a lot of product development. Me as an athlete, I can create new products that are suiting my needs that I cannot buy anywhere. Imagine it a little bit like I'm building a Formula One car with them to win a race. And you would never drive that Formula One car on the street. But because you are challenged to win this race, like me, I'm challenged to climb Mount Everest in wintertime solo. You have to be innovative. You have to come up with some new solutions, new technology. And in the end, nobody will drive that car on the street. Nobody will wear the suit I wear to climb the Everest summit in wintertime solo. But
of course,
we can then break down the technology and put it in the Mercedes. Everybody will drive on the street. But the innovation is coming from great races, great projects,
Sure.
So that's one part I do with the partners. Other partners have events with me later on. I do lots of motivational speakings. So you can also book me as a speaker. Right now, I also do online speakings. It's a new thing.
Of course, lockdowns forced everyone into Zoom calls and stuff like that. I guess webinars and everyone's doing that. That's when I also started the podcast. I was thinking about it since a long time because I guess podcast is a really good medium for adventure enthusiast people. because everyone likes to hear about stories and experiences. But yeah, lockdown forced me into it, to be really honest. So yeah.
So I think you're getting creative. This lockdown is like an expedition.
Right.
You have certain challenges.
Exactly.
You have to be creative in order to deal with it.
You have to make the best out of your time. You cannot, because just lazing around, killing time is really easy. But making something out of it, and especially in these difficult times, it takes effort for sure.
Yeah.
How you manage, like there is a lot of stuff you have to manage between your family and you, because like being an Indian, we always struggle to like manage our family, to like make them understand, okay, we are going in the mountain and it's such a risk. So is there any problem, like do you guys feel such kind of problem as well in your country, like whenever you ask or you discuss about these this risky expedition with your family, do they have some restriction on you, something like that?
I don't think it works like that here. I remember the first time I did. I tell you a little secret trick. It might also work in India. It will be of great help. I didn't tell.
Please, we need this, because it's really difficult to convince family members. That's a whole project altogether. That's an important part of planning the expedition, to get your family on board.
Yeah, no, but I basically didn't tell them I was going to do an expedition. I just went for it.
Okay.
Right.
I told them afterwards, and then.
If you like what you're listening and want me to explore more adventure stories and glories, please hit the subscribe button and don't forget the bell icon along with it.
They were like, "Oh, okay, now you're safe. It's okay."
you already went. Now you even came back. Okay, I don't think we can do anything much about it.
Yeah, I don't know, but do you think if you do that in India, your family would be so mad at you that it would be more difficult in the future?
I guess maybe I don't know. Basically, it's so for me, if I talk about me personally, it doesn't take me that much of an effort to convince my parents if I want to go for something that big, but they just need some time to adapt to it, some time to acclimatize to it. If we talk in our terminology, they just need a few days or something to just contemplate. They just want more information about it, that where is it that you are going, and they are really curious about it, that why do you want to do this. So I guess that's the main question I often fail to answer, that why, because sometimes even I don't know. Sometimes even I don't know, because it's just a calling, right?
And it's because we don't have that kind of culture. Yeah. And it's because we don't have that kind of culture. Yeah. So
maybe that would be a reason as well. For sure.
I think that your personal why for what you do is really essential, not only to communicate, to tell your families, but also for yourself to be successful. Exactly. If you know why you're going, it will help you all along the journey.
Right, for sure. That's true. But that reason is always good enough for me. But it's never good enough for them. But okay, you can't care. You can't think about everyone when you're pursuing something like this, of course. So yeah, I guess they're on board with me. Yeah, and
it's about communicating clearly. If you can say why you do this in one sentence, I think your family will understand much better than if you start, well, actually, I don't know myself why I'm doing this.
In that case, they'll not allow you.
There's a scope of doubt in the first sentence itself. So yeah, of course, it'll be.
So Jost, like, I really want to ask you, is there any incident which you really want to discuss, really want to share from your Amadablam climb or your recent climb? Your solo Everest climb? Any incident or any day which you feel it's necessary to share with all the people?
The
new challenge or something which
during these expeditions.
Okay, I think there is one day which I would describe as maybe the worst day of the expedition. So I've been up on Lola. Lola is, it's been a passage to Tibet in the ancient times, but now it's just a very steep rock and ice face leading up to a pass that's not longer used. Nobody's been climbing up there the last 30 years. So I have my Camp 1 up on that pass. So the route up there is very steep, very technical, rock climbing and ice climbing. And as I descended in the night from the area, during daytime it's really prone to avalanche and it's really moving a lot. So I descended at nighttime. I placed a rope at a section to enter the glacier. It's like a maybe 12, 14 meters vertical ice climb where I ascended the glacier and where I left the glacier. And I reached that place at nighttime and I saw that the glacier had collapsed and this part of the route was missing. And the rope I put there was only like 20 meters long, but there was only this much of the rope left. There was like only a little piece left and it was totally ripped apart and the route was missing. So I did what you have to do as an alpinist. I improvised and went down, and late in the night I reached base camp, and the next morning I wanted to go and get some breakfast. I got up out of bed and I tried to put my left foot on the ground and it hurt like hell, like I couldn't walk. So I didn't know what happened, and maybe I was so under adrenaline the last night that I didn't realize, because I was like, we talked about fear, but at that moment, like I knew this glacier was totally unstable and it could collapse anytime. And I went down there and I was so afraid I got sick in my stomach, you know, like I was so scared that I was about to vomit, you know. So maybe I had so much adrenaline in my body, I didn't feel like I injured myself, or I didn't know what happened. But the next morning I tried to walk, I couldn't walk. So I was jumping on one leg with 2 ski poles to my dining tent. And I sat there and I was like, shit, maybe it's a stress fracture. Maybe the expedition is over. And also the route collapsed. So there's no route going up the mountain and I'm sitting here with an injured foot.
Right.
And I think that was the moment of the expedition where I was preparing for helicopter evacuation. And I was like, okay, maybe the expedition is over now.
Okay.
So this was when was this? Was this the Everest expedition you went for?
Yeah, Everest.
Yeah,
right.
That was in the end of January this year on Everest winter.
Actually, I'm really interested in asking about this. This is really curious. I was really curious about it. How does the Everest base camp and how does Mount Everest look in January? Like, what is the what do you see over there? Like, how is it? Like, is it completely white, or like, how's the environment over there like at that time? In
the beginning of January, it's only me and my tents there. Nobody else. This my camp is the only camp. Sometimes there is snowfall, but snowfall is maybe once a month. So there's not. It's a dry climate. It's monsoon-driven climate.
Right.
So it's dry. Sometimes cloudy, but then also sometimes sunny but cold. Like in the tent in base camp, often it was minus 20 degrees.
Wow.
So only when the sun came out and was shining on the tent, it was heating up.
Yeah.
To my surprise, I saw a lot of garbage in the winter time, much more than in the spring season. I had the feeling that in spring, lots of the garbage was collected because everybody made a camp and they didn't want to have the garbage flying around. But in wintertime, there was just so much garbage coming out of the glacier.
Yeah.
I was surprised.
Yeah, I saw a post regarding that. I guess you collected around 30 kilos of garbage, I guess, from there itself. That's commendable, man. Like, that's really commendable. Like, during those environment, collecting that much garbage for the environment, of course, that was really great.
Yeah, I took around 30 kilos of that garbage. I think I collected more than 30 in Nepal, but I didn't take everything to Germany. But I took a big part of that garbage to Germany. And I have a museum, like I have an exhibition in Germany, and also different exhibitions where this museum will like wander around. and the garbage is becoming a part of that exhibition.
Wow, man, that's crazy.
Okay.
That's crazy. Like kind of best out of waste kind of thing.
I mean, it's just like showing the people what you can find there. And like, if sometimes you look at that stuff, you're like, no, you didn't find it at Everest. Like I found like pens, but I found like 20 of the same pens, you know, just laying next to each other. Like stuff like that, like books, all kinds of stuff, you know. So it's like crazy.
So like I honestly like I actually don't know how solo expeditions work or how you work out your solo expeditions. So were you like completely all alone over there, or did you have someone for your support at the base camp, or like how does this work for you?
Okay, so for me, an expedition or a climb starts from the base of the mountain. So, and at that base, I have a camp, the base camp.
Right.
And still there, I have support. So in the base camp, I have 2 chefs cooking for me. I'm vegan, so they cook vegan food. And in this case, I also had a photographer who was in that base camp.
Right.
But above the base camp, nobody's supporting me. From the base camp, I carry all loads by myself. I climb everything by myself. I don't use oxygen or anything. I go there. So once I established a bit of the route, I took the photographer who was also there with me in the base camp. I took him up so that we could have a shooting up on the mountain a little bit and go to Lola. But it was a pure shooting, and he didn't carry any essential gear or anything. I opened the route. We went up, and then as soon as we did that, we went down. And from then, that's where my real like solo expedition continued or started, if you want to say so.
Right.
Because from then on, the photographer was only staying in base camp, and I chartered a helicopter in the meantime. So he was filming a bit out of the helicopter.
Wow.
And then he left. And then I had 6 weeks only by myself and with the 2 chefs in the base camp. And then the Spanish guys came with Alex Ticon.
Tixon,
I don't know how to pronounce it. The chap was always say Ticon.
I met him. I met him.
I met him too. So he came different style, but then sometimes I talk to his crew, and I spent some rest days in base camp talking to them, improving my Spanish, which is like non-existent.
Gathering some other skills as well at Everest Base Camp at -20, I guess.
Yes,
of course. My rest days in base camp, I always study, so I bring books. I learned how to 10-finger typewrite on my computer.
Right.
And I read a couple of really good books. So of course, if I'm in base camp resting, I can't just do nothing. If I do nothing, I get totally bored.
Of course. You have to make the best of your time everywhere, I guess. So, and I guess especially when you're for me, when I'm in the mountains, I really like to read. So like for me, it's the best thing to do. Whenever I'm in the mountains, I take my books with me. I take my novels, whatever I'm reading currently, I just take them with me, because you don't need internet, nothing. You don't need anything at all over there. And of course, you don't even have it. So I guess reading a book for me is the best thing to do while I'm having a rest day on an expedition or something like that. So, so I guess we can just continue this discussion about your Everest expedition. So, what happened when you started climbing? And as far as I know, you weren't able to complete the expedition because of some reasons. So, like, what happened? What exactly happened when you were on the mountain?
So, first of all, let's go to the beginning, and then I will jump ahead to the lowest point of the expedition. In the beginning, this expedition was really exploration. I needed to explore where to set my route and how to proceed and so on. So it's not just like, okay, there is a route and I just need to acclimatize and follow that route. It was really, I needed to figure out where to climb, what to climb, and that took a long time. I had some rock climbing sections that were like probably 6B, you know, like they were like a little bit overhanging rock.
Yeah.
So if you check my Instagram pictures, there is one picture where I'm rock climbing, and I'm solo rock climbing in this difficult terrain. So I do a roped solo, which means I'm solo climbing, but I'm in a rope. If I fall, I will not die. I will just probably heavily injure myself, but I will not die.
Yeah.
It's also a big effort, and it's been freezing cold. So even if the air was warmer, I was rock climbing in down suits, in mountain boots, and I had gloves where my fingers could come out.
Right.
And even though I felt a bit warm, once you put your finger in the rock is minus 20 Celsius. That's the rock temperature.
Yeah.
So it's tough. It took a long time to find the right routes, find the right way. I did a few changes. And then, at one point I reached Lola, and I was like, this could be a route option. But then the route collapsed. I ended in base camp. My foot was injured, and I was thinking, okay, the expedition is over. Huh? But then if you invest so much effort, time, and money in such a project, and also, I love this project. So then it's hard to let go. So I was like, okay, I will just wait in base camp. I will see if things recover. I waited for maybe a week in base camp, occasionally hopping to the Spanish camp with my 2 ski poles. It was really bad. But it got a little bit better each day. And my physiotherapist, they sent an image via WhatsApp how to tape my foot. Right. So I could tape it, and I said to myself, okay, look, it's hurting a bit, but maybe I do a test walk to at least see the route up there where the ice fell off and where the route collapsed. So I went up there, and it was hurting, but somehow it felt like something in my foot just like cracked in again. So I saw the route. The route was horrible. I said, I will never, ever climb up that same route again. I went down. So I was at base camp. My foot was okay again, but I was still like, okay, foot is still hurting. It's not 100%, but it's working. Yeah. But the route is not working. So I waited a bit, and then I prepared to check out other options. But I had other problems, like the rope I put in that ice was gone. And look, a normal expedition to Everest will fix around 4 kilometers of rope to the summit. Yeah. I fixed around 150 meters of route in total. That's the maximum amount I fixed. So I didn't have enough spare rope. Yeah. So I borrowed some rope from the Spanish guys, and then took that rope up and free soloed a big other route that probably never ever has been climbed before. Wow. Traverse. And then I rappelled, and I put the fixed line on the rocky spot from top, because to free from the bottom was way too hard. And for a rope solo, my rope was in this 150 meters of fixed route. Like the rope was somewhere at a very important part. Yeah. So, and then I still had to go up and look for sections in the upper part of the mountain, because I've been only up one time. I checked out a route, and the route was a trap. Like there was no escape out of that. So it took me a lot of time to then investigate and explore the upper parts. And once I found an option that was working, and I reached a higher altitude, I realized that I ran out of time. Like the winter is almost over. And my goal was to reach 7,200 meters on this training expedition. So continuing, I had a higher risk than reward. And it was easy for me to turn around and say, look, there was no chance you could go to the summit now, because I was not acclimatized properly. I need, in my opinion, I need to sleep at 7,500 to 8,000 meters one time, go down, fully recover before I start a summit push. But I was up there. I could have gone and slept at 7,500 or 8,000, but then winter would have been over, and I could not have had the time for a second push to then attempt the summit.
Yeah.
So I didn't see any benefit in going further. I had a nice view from the west shoulder. I returned.
I'm sure.
I learned a lot, and I'm set up for success the next time.
Yeah. So you're planning to go again next year, I'm guessing?
I will go again 21, 22.
All right.
21, 22. Okay.
And of course, the corona situation has to get better by then. I hope it
By
does.
then it will be better. But
I really hope.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's going to be better.
It's going to be better.
Yeah, we have to be optimistic about it.
Such a project is also a bit like a mission to the moon, you know, when you come back to Earth as an astronaut, you lost lots of muscles. Like every day in camp is a day I'm not training. I'm losing fitness and so on. It's tough. So now it's about training, recovering, and then preparing for such a big project again. If I was
such a big project,
winter, you know, maybe if I do that every winter, I look like a zombie very soon.
Of course. Yeah, it takes load on your health, of course, and your body.
Yeah.
These extreme conditions, for sure.
Yeah.
So how did it work out with the authorities? Like you must have, you definitely need permits and stuff for climbing Everest, and like especially in off season and in winter. So how did it work with the authorities? Like, what all did you need for that, and how? Like, was it easy or like how did you go about it with the Nepal authorities?
So winter permits for Everest in Nepal are very easy to get, just like a normal permit. And they are cheap. They're discounted by a lot. So the permit in the normal season is like $11,800. In winter time, if you do not climb the normal route, it's only $2,500.
Wow.
Oh, seriously?
That's almost like
come, guys. Come. No. Don't climb in winter because I want to be there by myself. So stay home. Climb in normal season.
We'll be there to document you. Don't worry.
There are a lot of people who are not able to take that decision at that moment of time. Do you have anything to tell all of them? How can they manage, or how can they take all those decisions at the certain point of time? Okay, now it's just out of my control. I'm not able to go further. So it's better to go back. How can they improve their decision-taking power on those very friction of time? Okay.
Okay, so not to make the decision purely in that moment. You pre-make decisions. You make a plan. And as soon as things go off the plan, you are cautious and you consider, okay, how bad is it gone off the plan? Do I need to return now? For example, you say the plan is to summit, let's say 11 o'clock in the morning. Okay. You know that by afternoon in general in mountain climbing, weather will deteriorate and will go worse. You are climbing, you see your current speed and you're like, okay, I can't make 11, but I can make 12. Then you're like, okay, I'm 1 hour delayed. I think it's an acceptable risk to take because the bad weather usually comes in the afternoon. But when you're climbing and you're like, let's say 2 hours or 3 hours off, then you need to preset before you climb. Look, if I aim to reach 11 o'clock, but if I can't make 2 o'clock, I'm not going for it. And if at that point you realize, okay, I'm not able to reach the summit at 2 o'clock, then you just return. So you set preset parameters, a preset plan, a preset condition, like ascending of speed, or let's say you have specific presets for gear damage. Like let's say I rip my down jacket. How big is the hole that I return? Or what's the condition to return? You think about all of those things before. You imagine everything that can go wrong, and you decide when you're in some area with lots of oxygen where it's easy to think, you decide what you do later. Later you're in the thin air, you feel like you're drunk and you're trying to solve a mathematical problem. You don't need to solve the problem because you wrote down the solutions already somewhere.
Yep.
Like, it's really important to
so
be aware about the situations and what all can go wrong. You need to be really proactive with things. You cannot be careless. Or I'll see, I'll do it, I'll manage. You cannot be really careless when you're up on the mountain. Then for sure. So, like, you've been in the line for a while now. You know how things work. How, like, what path can someone take to become a successful mountaineer? So, what do you have to say about that? Like, for aspiring mountaineers, what should be the correct path? Like, if someone wants to start today, where should he or she start from? Like, what do you think about that?
Okay, so as I said earlier, when I was young, I saw all these movies where the heroes were already awesome, but nobody told me really, if you train hard, you can be whoever you want to be. So, guys, if you just train hard and you build skill, that's the important part, build skill. Only if you work hard and build skill. If you just work hard, usually a lot of times it's a huge waste of time. But if you work hard and you build skill, which means you're working towards specific things that will enable you, that will make you become who you want to be,
right?
Then that's the right path.
And like, what do you think about the importance of taking a proper formal training when you're about to go for all of these things? Because as far as I got to know you, you're a person who likes to take things on yourself. You like to self-educate yourself about things and learn on yourself. So what do you think is the importance of training when it comes to and the importance of technicalities when it comes to things like that, which are when you're living on the edge and doing these things? So what do you think about that?
So as I said, you need to work hard and build skill. And when you build skill, a lot of times building skill is easy through classes, good classes that help you. I visited a lot of classes from my Alpine club before I later on independently learned. But building skill and having a class can also mean you go climbing with somebody who's better than you. And you learn a lot if you find a mentor, or if you have the climbing partner that's ahead of you. That's like visiting a class, and you will learn a lot of things that you might not even notice you learn. So, I mean, we're all a little bit different, and everybody learns also a little bit different in a specific style. The importance is only that you know, how do I say, what you want to be able to do and what exactly you need to learn in order to be able to do that. And it's not about just do much, like just go climbing. It's about which skills will help me to be a better climber. So then you can focus on building those skills. But if you just go mountaineering, you will not be you'll not necessarily be a better mountaineer.
Sure.
Yeah.
Nice. That's really interesting. Because like I've had a couple of discussions with the people, like just when I started my podcast, and everyone like really focuses on the point of taking proper training. But I guess if you take it upon yourself, and if you know yourself, you try to learn about yourself, and if you focus on the skills that you need to do something like this, I guess that's a better way to go about it.
Yeah.
So, Jost,
we all learn different.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly, for sure.
So I guess I have actually covered all the points that I wanted to discuss with you. Just one last thing, like, and you talked about it as well, that you were coming to India to visit. What was his name?
Kuntal.
Right. You were coming to India to visit Kuntal. So that got postponed for sure. So when are you planning to come to India then? Because we have a lot of mountains over here as well, and of course Kanchenjunga, and you could do a winter expedition of Kanchenjunga as well.
Yeah,
I don't know if you have that in mind. But,
even though you can go to Meru as well.
Oh yeah.
Meru.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So when are you thinking of coming to India? Because we'd love to have you over here. And because we have a lot of things to do as far as mountaineering is concerned.
Yep.
So first of all, climbing Kanchenjunga from India is not possible because in India it's a holy mountain. So you can only climb it from Nepal. For Nepalese, it's not holy.
Yeah. I guess it's holy. I guess it's holy for them, but they still allow climbing. And I guess, and that's really smart. I guess India is also, I guess, working on this now. As if I'm not wrong, the Indian Mountaineering Federation has opened almost 137 new peaks they've for climbing in the Ladakh Valley, and they've also opened Kanchenjunga for climbing from the Indian side.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Maybe that could be a nice little mountain to have a look at.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so
I don't know, but I think I might visit India when I will have my next Everest attempt. So maybe before or after I will pass by and see Kuntal. I don't know, something like that could be a good option. So
yeah, definitely.
Stay tuned, and maybe I will have the speaking in India one day. Who knows?
Yeah,
definitely.
We'd love that, man. We'd love that. You have some stories to share, and I guess people would love over here to listen to them. I'm pretty sure about that.
Yes.
And like, if you have something to add to the discussion, a message for anyone or something like that, it'd be great. And I guess then we can end it over here.
Yep.
Let's end it. The message is already in the podcast.
Yeah, for sure. I guess that's exactly. Well, it was great talking to you, man. And I'll get in touch with you on Instagram for sure. And let's stay in touch. And I'll definitely follow your expeditions. And I'd love to be there with you for support. So let's see if we can work this someday and just go for some random expeditions and have good conversations up there in the mountains.
Have a good time, guys. Namaste, huh?
Namaste. Namaste,
Yes.
Kobusch. All right.
Have a nice
All right,
day.
Jost. All right. Bye-bye. Take care.